Okay, and it is May 19th. And let's see, we're going to get into our last talk about that was then just
Yay!
all of that was not for my birthday. I went on a camping trip with friends. We just happened to do it at the same time as my birthday, so I claimed it was my birthday. They did buy me a cake and sing happy birthday. But laser tag, I did shoot a lot of kids, which was fun.
Wow. Happy 100th birthday, Mr. Brovicast.
Thanks. Hopefully your day of service went well. It did for my group because we painted a whole bunch of rocks and then got to walk around the outside of the school and hide them. So if you end up walking around the outside of the school or through the trees or around the track, you are going to find little painted rocks all over the place with little pictures on them, all kinds of fun. Picture that's up there is this group. We did adorable little like scary hand things. There are kids in this class.
You're in that group. Oh wait. Why am I there?
I was gonna hate on him.
Good job.
Look this.
So as far as this sheet
We're
over
not
here
gonna talk about it.
goes. It's so easy to catch them. I thought I would make it a little bit easier for you to figure out how to read your B point or the sheet that's over here. This is with all of our final stuff on it. So when you look at it, the one that says B points is the one you've been looking at. No change there. It's these last three that can get a little bit confusing. So the one that says Q4, that is your current grade in my class right now. This is the one that the test tomorrow will impact. Then this is your exam grade. That your exam grade was the speech you gave, where you had to do the minute to 2 minute talk, where you had to either be you making a poor choice, or you had to do the longer version of the fable, or you had to talk about the book that you have read. This is also part of it, so that is on there as your exam grade. Then the last one where it says SM2, that stands for semester 2. This is all of your stuff combined. This is the important grade that we care about. This has your third 9 weeks combined with your fourth 9 weeks combined with your speech grade all into one thing. So those of you wanting to play football next year or do a sport, this is the grade. Those of you for Honor Society trying to figure it out, this is the grade. So semester 2 is the one that the actual school cares about and the school keeps track of. The other ones just build into it to help you out. Alright. As far as buying things, I have people who still want to spend points today. You have a chance today and tomorrow. I will give you a quick chance to do that if you want to. 1 second, we'll come back to this. Hi, as we continue on, we've now sold the things. Those of you wanting, I will offer again tomorrow. After tomorrow, if you want a thing, you're going to have to talk to me before or after class. Tomorrow will be the last time I do it during class. If you are wanting to write on my podium, that'll start Wednesday. If you are wanting to write in my yearbook, that'll start tomorrow. Those of you who gave me yearbooks, I will be writing in them today while we're watching the movie after school, which I'll talk about more in a moment. So having 100 points, writing on the big board as an 8th grader, that just means last day of school, make sure you've kept 100 points. And then, are you raising your hand for something? What's up?
Do you have fingernail polish?
I do, but not at the moment. Then, if you are wanting to watch movie, I am showing it for the last time today after school. It'll be in the LGI. You can either bring your bag down, your backpack, or leave it in your locker. I did have kids last Thursday use their backpack as a pillow. You're welcome to do that. Or if you want to leave backpack in locker, you're welcome to do that too. We'll be done just a few minutes after 6. I think it goes to like 6:05, depending on what kind of start time we can get into it. But other than that, this will be the last time I am showing it this week to try and help people out from there. Questions as far as movie goes? And then, oh, I do have popcorn for those of you who did well on it.
I'll keep on it.
Ew! 94? You're 94 years old?
You look like Iron Man. You look like Iron Man.
That's the year it's taking.
found my high school senior pictures, and so this was my high school senior picture. That was me in '94. I was 17.
1994.
Oh my god.
It's like you think you try to help out a person, but sometimes we just... And so this was back when I was 16 in '94. Part of the reason why I put it up there is class ring. After we had discussion from That Was Then, This Is Now about the fact of Brian trying to see if Kathy was wearing a class ring, I realized in my picture I have a class ring up there. You'll notice that the class ring is on my hand and not a girl's hand, and that should tell you something.
Oh, it's okay. That's real.
Was it telling me about the kid losing points who keeps trying to snort like a pig, thinking I don't notice?
Brian, yeah.
Because then we're going to give him a Simpson sheet to help him out. Because if you're sitting there, is to work on a thing. If you're turning around, that's not working on a thing. Just like a kid who's chewing gum, as soon as it came out of his mouth, we get to make him spit that out also.
Oh, thank God.
Because apparently
I'm gonna do
Mr. Brovicast, Daniel's chewing too.
Give me a bubble.
Now, my goal is, let's see, to run through things that happened in book and try to give you an overall idea. Out of curiosity, how many of you guys finished book? That you have an idea? So, for you, book, this conversation will have a bit more meaning to you because things are going to make sense. Those of you who have not read book, I'm still going to walk you through it to try to help you understand what happened in there, to sort of see what happened to the characters, but it's probably not going to have quite as much meaning. Hi, Nate.
So for the test, the same thing is stilling applying.
So the idea is tomorrow's test, it'll be 35 questions, and your goal is if you can get an A on it, meaning 93% or higher, and I'll put all of this in the directions, then your fourth 9 weeks grade goes up 10 percentage points. If you don't get an A, I can still put it in there if your grade is higher than what you currently have now. If you do, that makes your grade go up. If not, then grade doesn't go up. I don't put it in there. If you get higher than a 60%, then you do have a chance of getting candy. You get 1 piece for being in the 70s, 2 for the 80s, 3 for the 90s. If you get a perfect score, it jumps all the way up to 50%. There are 5 pieces. But hopefully that will help you out. Hi, Brian. And so, chapter 3, what I'm going to go ahead and do is sort of like walk you where we left off, which was the Mike Chambers scene where he gives the girl Connie a ride home and then she has all of her brothers beat him up. Chapter 3, we now go to, we're at school, and there's a school dance like the fancy one we had here between spring break and going to Camp Tecumseh, that fancy dance. They have one at the school, where we meet a character from The Outsiders. And this is Angela, who was, we talked about earlier, Angela Shepard, is the sister of Curly and Tim Shepard. Tim from The Outsiders, Curly Shepard, was the one who beat up Eminem at the very beginning. Find out that at the very beginning, when he's telling us about Curly, that Brian used to date Angela, but then Angela broke up with him, and he started telling stories about why he broke up with her, even though she broke up with him. We find out why she broke up with him is that she found this hottie by the name of Ponyboy. So Angela breaks up with her boyfriend, which is Brian, because she wants to go out with Ponyboy. And she goes over to Ponyboy and asks him out, and Ponyboy goes, "No, you're crazy. I'm not going to go anywhere near you. You're a psycho host beast."
Yay.
And so he refuses to go anywhere near her. So that's why Brian does not like Ponyboy, because his girlfriend broke up with him to go out with Ponyboy, and then Ponyboy turned down his girlfriend. Well, ex-girlfriend. So Brian thinks, not only do I not like Angela for breaking up with me, but I'm also not fond of Ponyboy because she's why he broke up with me. But don't worry, Angela's not done being crazy. Turns out she really does not like the idea of Ponyboy saying no to her when she asks him out. So she decides that she wants to teach him a lesson for not going out with her. And the best way to teach him a lesson is to try and kill him. And so she decides to have one of her friends, another guy, try to kill him at the school dance. Now, not flat out killing, but is trying to beat him up and then uses a weapon in the fight. But it turns out the guy that she used is not real smart, and in the process of trying to attack Ponyboy, Mark, Brian's best friend, gets in the middle of it and is like, hey, you can't get in a fight with a weapon, you've got to put that weapon down, which ended up being a beer bottle that they were getting ready to use. So the guy, instead of using the beer bottle on Ponyboy, turns and uses the beer bottle on Mark, and basically clubs him and sends him to the hospital and gives him a concussion and knocks the holy pooey out of him. All because Angela is upset that Ponyboy wouldn't go out with her. She almost gets Mark killed. Mark is not a big one for forgiving, so he plans to get revenge, which we'll get to in a moment. Jumping to chapter 4, going back to Charlie, the guy that owns the bar, he gets a draft notice. You guys know what a draft notice is?
Yeah, like you get drafted to the military.
There you go. So this was back during the Vietnam War, and the idea was they would sort of use like your student ID number and say, if your student ID number ends in a 5, you have to go fight in this war. If you didn't want to fight in the war, well, basically, if your draft number is called and say your student ID number ends in a 5, here are your options. 1, you can go fight in the war with the chance of killing someone or them killing you. If you didn't want to fight in the war, you could choose to go to jail, and you would stay in jail for however long the war was, and we did not know how long the war would be. Or you could leave the country, and you could go to Mexico or Canada or Europe, and then problem is you could never come back to America. And there are a number of people who left and then just didn't come back. Technically, there's a 4th option, which is if you have an injury, like if it turns out like you're missing a toe or something like that, you could not get drafted if you had some kind of injury that prevented it. Otherwise, you're going to have to go. So with that one, turns out that, so if you two are texting each other, I'm just going to charge both of you points because that's not a reason to stand. That is a reason for me to be mean and grumpy to people. And I have a feeling.
He texted me first.
Isn't that why you stood up first?
But then if you're just keep standing up back and forth to text a kid on the other side of my room, that's not being responsible texting.
Because they're looking straight at each other, you guys gotta make it.
What? Are you saying they weren't super sneaky? It's all right.
Jaden, you were so sneaky.
I know. Hey, look at that. We get to give them presents also.
Oh.
What a good use of our points. Continuing. So it turns out Charlie, even though he runs a bar, is getting drafted and now has to go fight in the war. There's a weird scene where they do talk politics and they bring up the idea of the left versus the right and Democrats versus Republicans. And even though this was way back in the 1970s, they're talking about how Democrats and Republicans are fighting each other. Unlike today, when they get along just fine and there's no issues at all. It turns out people have always fought each other and people have always not got along, even going all the way back. So that's why I brought it up, is that even today we seem to have the same issues. Ooh, we talked about hot wiring. Who hot wires cars?
You have to pop it and then.
Right, not can't fast. Mark. So, and technically at the end, Ponyboy, you are correct. But we're not to the end yet. And what happened with Mark and his hot wiring, he got caught and then had to do what? Had to go to probation. Problem is, he had to go to probation for stealing cars. But probation met during his lunch hour, and he does not have a car to get to probation. So how are you supposed to get to your probation officer? And so that becomes the issue, is that he starts finding out, well, I'm just going to borrow a car in the school parking lot. And he figures there's one car that's always there and never leaves that he has a good chance of being able to get away with borrowing. And that would be
The principal.
So he starts stealing the principal's car. Well, borrowing the principal's car to go to probation each day. Which is great till one day the principal has a doctor's appointment and comes out to get in his car, and his car is gone. That leads to a problem. Where you would normally think that Mark is going to get yelled at and get in trouble, does he?
No.
Because what skill does he have?
Sneaky.
He is good at getting himself out of trouble. So even though he gets caught by the principal, instead of getting in trouble, he manages to sweet talk his way out of it, and he and the principal become buddies, and the principal's like, I completely understand, you were trying to do the best you can, and Mark talks his way out of trouble.
It turns into Daniel.
He turned to me.
And then chapter 5, we find out that there's still another love triangle-ish type thing. But this one's a little bit different. Last one had Angela, which was his first girlfriend with the whole thing. Turns out this time it's a little bit different. Kathy comes to Brian and goes, hey, I met this boy at the dance by the name of Ponyboy, and he's kind of a cutie. Not only is he kind of a cutie, but he also asked me out. So we find out that Ponyboy asks out Kathy, but Kathy is not a bad person, and she's not a bop. So what she ends up doing is saying no to Ponyboy and staying with Brian's like, hey, I've got a man, don't I? And Brian's like, you do got a man. And so Brian and Kathy end up staying together, and everything's good. But Ponyboy almost becomes an issue because she talks about what a cutie he is and the fact that he tried to out her. And we find out Charlie does not get drafted. Well, he was supposed to get drafted, but it turns out there's a 5th thing that prevents you from going, which is if you have a criminal record. And it turns out, according to Charlie, he killed somebody when he was a kid, and because he has a murder rap on his background, you can't go fight in the war which is ironic that they go, you can't fight in a war to go kill people if you've already killed somebody. You would think that'd be the perfect reason to go fight in a war because you have experience, but apparently they tell him, no, you can't fight in it because you've already done your killing. Then, beginning of book, we talked about a little bit, the scene where they first walk into the bar and Charlie makes the comment that if you keep doing this, eventually someone's going to get all hacked off and break off a pool stick and ram it down your throats. We find out this is when that happens. They are not just gambling. It turns out they are doing what's called hustling, which is like gambling, but a bit more dangerous. It's not cheating. Do you guys know what hustling is?
Yes. Yep. It's like throwing dice.
My grandma calls me a
A
hustler.
little bit different. Throwing dice is closer, is actually just gambling. But hustling is where you
Basically,
pretend to be bad at it in order to get someone to bet extra money. So let's say Avery and I are going to go play pool. And I'm like, hey, Avery, you want to play pool? And she's like, I've never played before. And I'm like, well, you want to take the stick and you're going to hit the balls in there. And she's like, do you swing it like a baseball bat? And I'm like, oh, that's silly, Avery. And I'm like, no. And you hit like that. She's like, oh, I've never played this game. And then I'm like, oh, well, you're pretty good. And she hits a couple of the balls in. And I'm like, all right, Avery, then how about you and I bet some money and I'll take money from you. And Avery's like, oh, I'm just a girl, but okay. And I'm like, all right, let's bet we'll bet like $100 on this game. And she's like, 100? Okay. Donk, 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 donk. Oh, did I hit them all in on the first try? Oops. And it turns out Avery is like some kind of master pool player, and she knows exactly what she's doing. And she just pretended she was bad. And I'm like, what? And she was like, yeah. That's hustling. You can hustle anything. It's essentially where you lie about how good you are at something to trick people. There's a movie called White Men Can't Jump, which is about hustling playing basketball. But you could hustle poker, you could hustle pool, you could hustle anything where you just pretend to be bad at it. Here, in the book, Brian pretends to be really bad at it. Mark is his friend who tries to get people to bet against him. And they end up playing against these two guys called the Texans. One of them's named Dirty Dave, and the other is his friend. And Dirty Dave and the Texan look scary, but have lots of money. And that was when Brian and Mark end up hustling them and taking all of their money. Which is great, until the Texans realize they got hustled. And they are not happy about it. So, this is where they drag Mark and Brian outside, and they get ready to, not quite sure what's going to happen, because they have a gun, and they also have brass knuckles, I think they have something else, and the idea is that they're basically going to hold a gun on them while they beat them until they bleed, but right before they get a chance to start the beating, they get saved. And this is where Charlie, the bartender, comes running in with a shotgun, and he's like, hey, you can't beat up my friends, and he saves them. But right as he saves them, one of the two, of the Texan and Dirty Dave, shoots, and they end up missing Mark and Brian, but it hits Charlie and kills him. And so then we end up having Charlie.
They got me.
They got 65 seconds.
This, when Charlie dies, is what starts officially messing up their relationship. The friendship they've had forever, because between Mark and Brian, do you guys know what empathy is?
No.
So not sympathy, where you feel sorry for someone, but empathy, where you can sort of feel what they're going through. Well, Charlie dies, and it really splits the two of them. Brian feels guilty. He goes, he had no reason to save us. He could have stayed inside, and we would have gotten beat up, but we deserved it because we were being bad kids. But he came out to save us, and because of that, I feel really guilty about Charlie dying. Mark goes, nope, I don't feel guilty whatsoever. He knew they were dangerous. It was his choice to come outside, his choice to die. I don't feel guilty whatsoever. And so this starts to separate Mark and Brian between should you feel guilty about Charlie's death and what he did. On top of that, Brian has this thing called a girlfriend. And this is the part that might impact some of you guys. If you have a friend who has been so caught up in the boyfriend or girlfriend, they kind of stop talking to everybody else and disappear. That's what happens in the book here, where all of a sudden, yeah, I caught it. Brian and Mark are sort of going in separate directions. Brian goes, well, I know someone who cares about me, Kathy. And so Brian and Kathy start getting closer and closer, and Mark, his best friend / Jaden, gets farther and farther away as this person comes between them. If I'm picking up on the clues here. Then we get to Chapter 6. A couple months have gone by, and we find out that we do know who killed Charlie, and they get put on trial, and they end up being convicted and having to go to jail, because apparently killing people is wrong, so they have a little scene at the trial.
Wait, who was the one that got
Brian.
I finished it by himself.
And this pops up in conversation. Those of you who have had wellness class where they have done the different drugs, some kids had LSD.
I did.
It is things we should not yell
I've never
out.
taken any of them.
I did LSD. It's not a thing we should yell out. Okay. So it's called LSD for the L and then the S and the D. It's lysergic dianthamide acid. And acid is a really strong hallucinogen. It was really popular during the hippie times. And essentially it stimulates all 5 of your senses. Seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, all of those things. And what it does is activates it so that you hallucinate, meaning you see things that aren't there, hear things that aren't there. You can talk to people who don't actually exist, but your brain tells you that they do. It's, for an adult, it's scary and powerful. For a kid, it's dangerous and powerful. Because what it does is it rewires your brain neurons, and if you're an adult and your brain neurons are already set, it's not as damaging. If you're a kid and you do it and it rewires your brain neurons, it can do permanent stuff. And that's one of the issues we're going to get to. So, awkward friendship triangle we did. Ooh, they talk about cruising. Not a thing that's as popular today, but it was popular all the way up through my childhood. Before we had things like Tinder and Facebook and your bio on Instagram where you can talk about whether or not you're in a relationship, we had, you guys ever been to downtown Indy? There's the Circle,
Yeah.
where there's like the big monument in the middle of it.
Yeah.
When I was a kid in high school, it was real popular to get into a car with a bunch of friends, drive down to Indy, and you would cruise around that circle flirting. And if you'd like be in a whole car full of boys, you would try to find a car full of girls, and you'd be like, what's up? And like you'd roll down windows and be all flirty. It was a thing. That's what they're talking about in this book, was they did that same rolling down the windows flirty thing. Although they also talk about here, they have a bench seat in the car. Like most cars today have what are called bucket seats, where you have like your own seat and it has like its individual ones. Back in the day, it had what was called a bench seat, where all of you could sit in the front seat. It was dangerous, but you could all sit together because they didn't really have seat belts back then. But when they go cruising, Brian is driving because he got to keep Charlie's car after Charlie died. and then you have Mark, and then you had Kathy, and then you had Eminem hanging out the other windows they cruised around. Hi, Brian.
Did you do that?
I did, that's what I just said. Hi, Daniel.
Hello, mister.
Good stuff. The car they go cruising in is an orange Camaro they talk about. They get into a fight with guys in a green Corvette, and so they talk about these Corvette boys.
No, that's not green.
So we mentioned drive-in movies and drive-in restaurants with outsiders. When they go cruising, you would stop at these drive-in restaurants to, like, if you met the honeys, you have to have a place to stop and talk to the honeys. And so that's where the drive-in restaurant would be, so you could stop and talk to the honeys. They stop at a drive-in restaurant not to talk to honeys, but as soon as they stop to turn around, Eminem, who, you guys remember how old Eminem is?
16.
13, jumps out and runs away and says, I am never coming home again, because he's a hippie and his dad keeps making fun of him for his long hair and not wearing shoes and the fact that he's failing classes at school. And so Eminem decides to run away from home at 13 and live on the street. Sophia? Sure, Sophia. That brings us to the end of chapter 6, and now Eminem has run away. Chapter 7 begins with us having to go and tell his parents. Brian and Kathy go and have to tell Eminem's parents and all of the little siblings, hey, he has run away and he says he's not coming back. The dad says, like, psh, whatever, we've got backup kids, we're fine. But Kathy gets really upset about the whole thing. It's like, he's not going to come home. And it turns out she's right, he doesn't come home. He ends up being gone for months on end at 13, just living on the streets. Because he really does not like his home. So this friendship thing keeps getting further and further apart. Beginning of the book, they were best friends, had never had a fight, no issues came between them. As we go through the book, they start getting farther and farther apart, and we start having more and more things come between them as Brian continues to mature and Mark does not. So, in order to not lose their house, they have to get jobs. Brian ends up working as a grocery bagger. Mark, we don't know. We just know that he's bringing home money. Brian says, I assume he's gambling a whole lot and doing stuff like that. He could be getting drugs, although it doesn't seem like he's on drugs, but he's definitely doing something to make money and bringing it home. So now they at least have money. Brian is spending all of his on his girlfriend. Mark is spending his mostly on the home for the family and buying groceries and stuff like that. So Mark is actually being slightly more responsible than Brian is on this one. So can you tell what's going on with her?
No. Oh, she's becoming a drunk addict.
So this goes back to Angela, who was his first girlfriend, the one that ended up having Mark get hit the head with a bottle because she had the crush on Ponyboy. Months have now gone by, and we find out a lot has changed in her life since that dance where she was going against Ponyboy. Turns out she's 16 and she is now married. The reason she's 16 and married is her parents gave her a choice. She either had to go live with her grandparents for 9 months, or she had to get married.
Oh, wait a minute.
Babies.
So there you go. So it turns out apparently she was pregnant by another one of the greasers, no one that we know. But to make things even worse, shortly after they got married, it turns out she was wrong and she was not pregnant. She was mistaken and thought she was pregnant. So now she's 16 and married to a guy that she's not even pregnant. And on top of that, she really does not like her home life because it turns out now that she has to be married, she's living with her husband and his family. And her husband's dad spends his time hitting on her and grabbing her butt and all of that. So she's 16 and that's what she's living with. So her life is not in a good place whatsoever, which is why when we finally meet her again, she's now drunk because she's trying to forget how awful her life is. So last time Mark and her were together, Mark and her were in a scene together, what did she have happen to him? Tried to kill him. So Mark decides it's time to get revenge. What he does is, now that she's drunk, he goes out and gets her more alcohol, so that she gets so drunk to the point of passing out. Once she has passed out, he then enacts his revenge. She was really proud of how she looked and the fact that she had long hair that went all the way down to her butt. So he figures the best way to get revenge is he ends up cutting off all of her hair. And by cutting off all of her hair, I mean like
11 from Stranger Things.
cutting off like, all of her hair.
Ryan, shut the.
So
You gonna get a buzz, Brian?
on
You look like a gay girl.
look at that. And now we have 3 people doing Simpson sheets. And aren't you guys
Thanks a lot,
fun?
Brian. That thing was so much.
Yeah.
Bro, you decided to say
Oh my
something
gosh,
bad.
she Mr. Brovicast, so can I just
Can't hear you.
like.
Mr. Brovicast.
Still can't hear you. Still talking to this teaching thing. And so it turns out that he not only is cutting her hair part of his revenge, but on top of that, he drives her back to her house, drives onto her lawn, throws her onto the front lawn still passed out, and then throws her pile of hair on top of her. Then drives away as the ultimate way of him getting revenge. Problem is, he has now gotten revenge on her. So what's the next step going to be? And that's where things are going to keep escalating to make stuff worse and worse. Oh, we also find out in this scene that apparently they have been keeping their cigarettes hidden from their mom as best they can, and their storage place for their cigarettes is underneath their beds. Not the best place to store your hidden things, but it plays a role later in the book. Then we get to final part of the book, and one of the first things is, beginning of the book, do you remember what happened to Mark's parents? Why he lives with Brian even though it's not his brother? How did they die? They shot each other. So we find out that they shot each other. Well, here we're going to find out why they shot each other.
They're really drunk. They're really drunk.
Hi, Brian.
I finished all 4 episodes.
So happy for you. It definitely buys you a lot of time to work on a Simpson sheet. So it's actually top of page 115. We find out why Mark's parents killed each other. We've always been friends. I can't remember when we haven't been. How come your old man shot your mother? I mean, she shot him back, but it was too late because she was dying anyway. I really was drunk because I had never mentioned that to Mark in all the years I've known him. It was me. I was under the porch. I could hear them real plain, and the old man was saying, "I don't care. I ain't never seen a kid with eyes that color. Nobody on my side of the family has eyes that color. Not on yours either." And the old lady says, "That's right. Why should he look like anybody in your family? He ain't yours." And then they start yelling, and I hear this sound like a couple of firecrackers, and I think, well, I guess I can go live with Brian and his old lady. So, why did they shoot each other?
They're drunk.
Because
mom
cheated on the dad.
JK. Yeah, turns out mom cheated on dad. And so that was where the issue came in, is that dad accused, she confirmed, and then he shot her, and then